Hey, everybody. So, Wake Forest versus Georgia Tech a couple days ago, and everybody knows it. A lot of people have been talking about it. There was this crazy controversial ending with the refs missing an offsides call that allowed Georgia Tech to get the ball back, tie the game up, go into overtime, and eventually win it. It was a miracle freaking comeback, and it was crazy. And everybody's had a lot to say about it, including Josh Pate. And I'm going to be honest, Josh Pate peed in my Cheerios a little bit with some of the things that he had to say and the way that, he kind of chose to broach this topic. And I want to, take a look at what he said and give my response to them. So I'm going to jump over to a clip about Josh Pate and what he had to say about it on his Sunday show. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in double speed because I don't got all day.
ACC officials stole a game from Wake Forest yesterday. You're looking at the game here. Bradley, just loop it for a second. So here's the situation. If you're listening on pod, Wake Forest is up 23-20. Minute 51 to go. Georgia Tech has no timeouts left. They have the ball. Wake has the ball. They're up. Opponent has no timeouts left. It's third down. Basically, they need a first down. Game's over. Georgia Tech jumps off sides badly, to the point where center does exactly what he's supposed to do, snaps the ball. Robbie Ashford at quarterback does exactly what he's supposed to do. He throws the ball up. Why wouldn't he? Consequence free, right? At worst, we're going to get 5 yards and we're going to get a replay, a third down. They didn't throw the flag. So what did that do? Well, what it did was it made the down count. And it's an incomplete pass, so it stops the clock. And Wake has to punt. And guess what Georgia Tech did? Marched right down the field, kicked field goal, tied the game, go into overtime, win the game. Flat out stole the game from Wake Forest.
Yeah, so in no uncertain terms, Josh Pate says the game was stolen from Wake Forest. Georgia Tech should have won that game. And, hey, the very second the game ended, I would have agreed with everything he said there. I recorded my reaction. I recorded it right as it happened, and I gave my immediate thoughts on the game, and I was like, yeah, we got away with one. Like, that was 100% offsides. We really snuck out of there. We should not have won that game. We played a bad game. We shouldn't have been in that situation. Totally jumped off sides. And it was our fault. And I would have totally agreed with everything he said. And look, I can take a step back. I'm a huge Tech fan. Like, I freaking love the Jackets and everything. Yeah. But I can take a step back and look and realize when, we get away with one. Or when, a call went our way, I can recognize that, right? And so that was my initial reaction at the end of the game. But the more I thought about it, and the more people commented and talked about this, the more I thought it was a really good point. We're going to go back to earlier in the game. There was another really bad call by the refs that did not go Georgia Tech's way. I'm going to go ahead and cut over to this little clip here. This is right before halftime, and it is Robbie Ashford taking a sack while he is attempting to pass the ball, and you can see this. It was ruled a fumble on the field. We wound up picking that ball up, running it back to around the 50, right? And this went under review and was ruled as a pass. I think that was the wrong. I think that was the wrong thing. This is highly contentious. It was reviewed and decided it was a pass because of the forward hand motion with Robbie Ashford. He goes to make the pass. That determines the start of a pass, right? That's what the refs look at when they're looking for, a pass versus incomplete pass versus a fumble. But I want to ask a question here. How can this be a pass when he never threw the ball? You can see him make the passing motion. He doesn't pass it. There's no pass. When he drops the ball, that wasn't him throwing it. That was him dropping it because he was taking a sack. He was taking a hit from the defender. I've played it 100 times by now, and look, plus the ball went backwards. That's not a pass. That is not a pass. And the fact that they took this to review and found this as indisputable evidence and enough to overturn it is crazy. At the very most, it should have stood, right? Or whatever terminology they use now. They don't say stood anymore. They say it was upheld. Whatever it is, it should have The call on the field should have stood, because that is not, I don't care what you say, that's not indisputable video evidence, right? Now, you can say, okay, so they overturn that call. They're in the red zone there, so they get a field goal off of that. Well, obviously, we got a field goal off of, the missed offsides call. And you could say ours was way earlier in the game, and theirs was, at the very end, and the game would have ended right there. But hey, the game didn't end right after we got that offsides call. I mean, we were still down. They had to punt it away, and then we had to get the ball, deep in our own territory with no timeouts, and a couple minutes left, like less than 2 minutes left on the clock. And they let us go down the field. They let us kick the field goal, and then there was also overtime. So Wake Forest didn't lose the game because of that call. It was a bad call. It was a missed call. But they didn't lose right there because of that call. It wasn't one way or the other. They still had a chance to win that game. And look, at the end of the day, you can look at these two plays, and it's really undeniable. At the end of the day, both teams had calls that went the other way that both resulted in the other team getting 3 points. So, in the end, it's kind of a wash, isn't it? So this is obviously what everybody's talking about, right? I want to show Josh Pate's next clip, and he goes on to say, after Wake Forest had the game stolen from him, this is what he goes on to say.
I don't know what started this, but I posted that earlier today, and then some people came in my mentions, and they said, oh, you're going to point that out but not point this out? And they were showing, like, missed holding calls in the Penn State game. And I watched the clips, and absolutely, I think those are missed holding calls. If you think that is equal to what we're talking about here, in terms of outrage, I don't agree with you.
And then he goes on to talk about, holding calls and how the offsides was way worse than the holding calls, yada, yada. I'm not going to show it because I'm not arguing against that. It doesn't, matter to this video. And frankly, he's right. A holding call doesn't make a difference in the game versus the offside call in the Georgia Tech Wake game. So he is right about that. What I do want to do is take a look at this Twitter post. Let's jump over this Twitter post and take a look. I want to try and see what these supposed people are talking about with this, these Penn State and Oregon holding calls. So here's his original post. Just saw the Georgia Tech Wake miss offsides call. Disbelief at college football officiating. So I'm going to sort this by likes here, right? So this is his post. And then here he is again replying to the people in the comments talking about holding calls. So he's made a whole comment here about it, and then he mentioned it in his segment. So let's see if we can find these supposed people talking about holding calls. Well, first comment here, wait until you see the reverse Robbie Ashford fumble in the first half. Okay, that's the clip that I just got done showing you a minute ago where Robbie Ashford freaking fumbled, and it was ruled an incomplete pass. Here's another guy. Check out the overturn of a clear fumble. Look at this. I mean, everybody in the comments section is talking about it. Everybody. Here's a random Tennessee thing that he didn't address. But look. Fumble. Everybody's talking about the fumble. How far do you got to scroll to find the somebody talking about Penn State holding? Here we go. After scrolling for a mile, we got somebody talking about Penn State holding call. Dummy. Right here. Dummy. And then look. So I see 1, 2. This must be the clip he was talking about. And 3. And I think 4. So about 4 comments. And then look. It goes right back to everybody talking about the fumble. So clearly that is what is going on most in this comment section. Everybody talking about this. Look at this. There's 109 comments in here. I found 4 talking about holding in the Penn State and Wake game. Why did Josh Pate choose to focus on the holding and not the other argument over the clear, fumble, miss, incomplete pass? Why is he – I don't understand. Why focus on these people talking about holding? It's like why not have the tough conversation, right? Why not go down the road where things aren't black and white? Why ignore 95% of your comment section, right? Why not have the debate about whether these two, the fumble and the offsides cancel each other out because they both wound up, costing the other team 3 points? Or if you do have the opinion that it doesn't, that the fumble doesn't make up for the offsides, at the very least, mention the fumble and maybe explain your reasoning as to why you think so, rather than taking a low-hanging fruit argument of a very small minority of people in the comment section. It just makes no sense to me. I really don't understand it. And look, okay, I'll give him this. Maybe when he first made the post, people were bringing it up, like the first couple people to comment were talking about holding in the Penn State game. But look, a lot of time passed between the time he made that post and his show that night. You didn't see any of the comments about the fumble? I mean, it was like 95% of the comment section. I just don't understand. It could have been a really good segment where he, goes on to talk about college football philosophy. Does it cancel out? Do either of them cancel out? Like, what's your opinion on that? I'm sure I think that he would say, Wake Forest, no, it doesn't cancel out, and blah, 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 blah. Like, but that's fine, but at least go down that road rather than picking the dumbest people in the comment section and arguing and winning an easy argument against them. It's silly. And not only winning an argument against these dumb people in the comment section, but also targeting one of the boogeyman that he likes to pick on. So he has like 3 boogeyman that he's always going after, right? The refs, the NCAA, and mysterious shadow figures in suits that are ruining the sport behind the scenes, that are making all these changes to the sports just to line their pockets, right? So those are the 3, kind of entities that are ruining everything, that he'll criticize them and everything, and, they can't defend themselves, and no one's going to argue with them. Nobody likes the refs. Nobody likes the NCAA. Nobody likes mysterious shadow figures ruining the sport. So my point about Josh Pate is he takes low-hanging fruit arguments and wins against dumb people and boogeyman that nobody's really going to fight against, and nobody's going to argue with him. And this video isn't even as much about arguing about the game was stolen or not, because I understand both sides, because I was on both sides, right? If I was a Wake fan, I would be mad too. I would be mad at the way this game ended. And I can get it. But I can also play devil's advocate for Georgia Tech and say that it wasn't so black and white, because you had a lot going into that. Georgia Tech had a major, major call that resulted in points for Wake Forest too. And in the end, it was a wash, right? So I can see both sides. I can understand it. But this video is more of a criticism of Josh Pate and how he handles arguments with certain people, and takes, he'll pick the worst people with the worst takes to argue with, or people that can't argue back or won't argue back. Like, you have a big platform, Josh. You need to do better. Anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. I'm still a fan of Late Kick. I just, sometimes have a problem with the way Josh handles certain things and the certain things he does and says. So, just got to talk about when I see it. But there's nothing really else to it. So, anyway, hey, go Jackets. We'll see y'all next time.